should you use LaTeX to format your book? The short answer, the very short answer is no, don't use it. The slightly less short answer is probably not. In this video, we'll go into what LaTeX is and how you might be able to use it to format your book. But I'm saying at the start that this probably isn't something you want to use. Some people do use it, but this probably isn't something you want to use. So, well, why is that? But firstly, what is LaTeX? If people who are involved in scientific publishing, academic publishing, tend to be quite familiar with LaTeX and what it is and how it works. People outside of that, regular authors who've got nothing to do with scientific publishing and that entire part of the world, generally speaking, haven't heard of LaTeX, don't know what it is, have no idea how it works, would have no idea if it's any good. So firstly, what is it? Well, for most of us, we're very familiar with something like Microsoft Word. If we want to write a document, we're going to do it in Microsoft Word. It's been around for ages. We've been using it for ages. Microsoft Word, 20 years ago, it was fairly common to hear Microsoft Word be described as a word processor. You don't hear that phrase so much anymore, but it used to be called a word processor. The idea being that it's a program that you can see what you're typing, you can see how it looks, and it's going to give you something on a printed page. The term word processor is a bit strange. It's what Microsoft Word is doing. Really, it's doing two separate things. It's on the one hand recording the text that you want on the page, and then it's typesetting it. And these are two quite distinct processes that I think sort of get bundled together under this phrase of word processing. Microsoft Word does this as a few other programs similar to Microsoft Word. If you've used Google Docs, that's basically the same sort of thing. That's the way that most of us are familiar with. If you want to get some text on a page and print it out, that's how you do it. LaTeX and the thing it's built on, which is just tech, is a radically different way of doing all of this. It's very, very separate. LaTeX is the name used to refer to all of this stuff nowadays. It's built on this older system, this more foundational system, which is tech, which sounds like it's spelt T-E-C-H, but it's spelt T-E-X. It's spelt, I wonder if I can just put it on the page for you now. I'll explain what this what thing we're looking at here is in a moment. If you can see that there, it might be quite small on the screen. That's how it's spelled, T-E-X. The X is supposed to be the Greek letter chi, but quite the distinction at this point. I'm not sure anyone really cares. There's and then the thing that the other word that I'm saying is LaTeX, and you can see it's got all this weird mixture of capitals and so on. It's tremendously annoying, but that's how it tends to be written. LaTeX like that. Again, it ends with an X. A lot of people, when they first see this word, think it's pronounced latex for entirely understandable reasons. But yeah, because this final letter here is supposed to be a chi, as the whole thing is pronounced tech. It is related to, the word tech, and it comes from the Greek word techno, which our modern sort of short word tech comes from. Anyway, that's just a bit of an etymological tangent. So LaTeX is built on this older thing of tech. Now, what tech is? It's a typesetting system, where typesetting is the action of arranging letter forms on a page. You go back 100 years. This was the act of you'd actually take a metal type and you'd arrange where it's going to go on the page. Metal type being the actual pieces of metal that you're going to stamp on, use to stamp the letter onto the page. That's what typesetting is. It's arranging the metal type, and nowadays it means just arranging the letter forms on the page. And that's what tech is. Tech is a typesetting system. I've had very limited interaction with tech itself, just pure tech, over the years, and that's generally the case for most people. Most people, their interaction with tech happens via LaTeX, which is essentially what you're looking at now on the screen. So LaTeX is a way of specifying some instructions for what the typesetting system that is tech should do. It's a way of specifying, okay, put this text here, make this text bold, this, put an image here, that sort of thing. So LaTeX is just the language that is used to give instructions for how to typeset stuff on a page via tech. It's been around for ages and ages and ages. In fact, I don't know for certain, but I think in the early years, tech and LaTeX were sort of more advanced than other things like Microsoft Word. Like if you were using tech and LaTeX, you would get, generally speaking, nicer results than if you were using something that we think of as more modern, like Microsoft Word, which is probably the only time I'm ever going to describe Microsoft Word as modern. So that's what, in the broader sense, that's what LaTeX is. It's a way of specifying instructions for what to put on a page. A simpler and in many ways more convenient way of understanding it is that it's a programming language for specifying, like, put this text on a page. It's a way of, if you're familiar with anything from the way that the internet works and the way that websites work, you'll be familiar with HTML. HTML is a way of specifying, put this on the page, put this text on the page, put this image on the page. LaTeX kind of does a similar thing. There's it's a bit different philosophically in how it works, but it's in a sense it's doing a similar thing. It's put this stuff on the page, put it here, put it there, put it in this style, that sort of thing. So this means that unlike Microsoft Word, when you use Microsoft Word, you type something and you see that thing in a font, and you can change the font. And then that thing that you typed, you now see it in that new font. You can put it in this font size, this font family, this, you can make it bold, a different color, you can underline it, all this different thing. And then what you are looking at is what you get. And that's, a very common way of editing that kind of stuff, right the way across the internet now. With LaTeX, it's not like that. With LaTeX, you have this code, which is, you can see it on the left here. You have this code, and this is what you edit, and then you compile it, and then you will get a PDF which shows you, this is what it actually looks like. So this, there's a separation now between what you're actually storing, what you're actually writing down, doesn't have any distinct formatting other than some colouring to make it easy to read, which is done automatically, and then that actually gets compiled into the final thing, the final PDF, which is a very different way of working to Microsoft Word. It's now no longer what you see is what you get. It's now what you type is what you get. So it's a way of specifying programmatically what to do. This is very, very different to what we're used to. And I'm still yet to explain what I'm actually looking at here. This website. I will explain that in a moment. But this is quite a different way of thinking about how to actually specify what goes into a book, and this does have certain advantages, also has certain disadvantages. One of the advantages of separating the action of what you edit from what you get is that it makes it much clearer to see really what's going on. If you can't see something here, if you can't see something in that text, then it's not there. It's not part of the document. It's not having an effect on it. This is a bit different from Microsoft Word. In Microsoft Word, it's very easy for things to be in the document, for things to be on the page that are having an effect on it, but you can't see them. If you've got a Word file open and you click on Show Hidden Characters, many of the things it shows you when you do that won't be terribly surprising. It'll be things like new paragraph characters and so on. But you might find that actually, in one part of the page where you thought there was no tab character, there actually was a tab character, or you might find that there, somewhere where you thought there was a page break or a section break, there was actually two page breaks or a different kind of page break or section break to what you thought was there. That's quite common in Microsoft Word. If you do a lot of formatting in Microsoft Word, you'll eventually, you'll probably quite quickly find come across a scenario where you thought it was doing one thing, and actually it's not. It's doing something slightly different, but you couldn't see it because Microsoft Word didn't show you. That's surprisingly and annoyingly common in Microsoft Word. When you're doing stuff like this, you don't run into those problems because you can see everything that you've done, and if it's not there, it's not going to affect it. And that can be a tremendous advantage because it becomes much less frustrating when it's very frustrating when there are things happening in your document and you don't necessarily know what's going on, why it's happening. I mean, another example with Microsoft Word is when you're editing headers and footers. There's the option to link a header or footer to the previous section, and that system functions, but it doesn't function very well. And very often, a section can be linked to the previous section, but it's not obvious that it is, because, particularly if you're using columns, sometimes columns themselves in Microsoft Word create a new section, and it's not necessarily obvious that there is a section there, so it kind of gets this hidden section, but it's still affecting the others. All this kind of stuff. You don't get that with something like LaTeX, or similarly something like HTML. And there are ways of making a printed document in HTML, but it's a bit of a nightmare. But you don't get that sort of thing in LaTeX because you can see what you've done. So that is a really big advantage of using something like LaTeX. It makes it a lot clearer. If you're a perfectionist or a near perfectionist, this can be tremendously reassuring because it's not doing things that you can't see. So that's one of the advantages of using something like LaTeX. Another advantage, particularly with LaTeX. So LaTeX is a bit funny. A lot of people who are huge advocates of LaTeX one of the things they really like is that it is a very sophisticated typesetting system. There's a lot of things that it takes account of that Microsoft Word simply doesn't, and because of that, very, very sort of slight positionings of letters and this sort of thing. Because of that, the output that you can get through LaTeX is slightly better, or the advocates would say a lot better, than what you can get through Word. You can get some very, very nice things coming out of LaTeX. Now, I want to qualify that very, very heavily. You can get some very nice things coming out of LaTeX. You can also get some absolutely hideous things coming out of LaTeX. LaTeX, I often say, if you do what LaTeX wants you to do, you'll get something that looks nice. If you try to do something that is even slightly different to what LaTeX wants you to do, it will just chuck out hideous-looking stuff. It is a very, very inflexible program. Even doing things like doing the simplest things. I mean, here's an example. So you can. So LaTeX has a default font, and that's the font you can see here. This is LaTeX default font. You can change the font in a LaTeX document, but it's often very annoying, and it often doesn't do what you want it to do. So there's certain fonts that you can change it to that have kind of been curated. Someone has made a particular effort to make LaTeX work nicely with them. But if you want to just use any font, if there's a font that you already know of that you really like, or there's one that you find online that you really like, and that's the one you want to use, that can be quite difficult. And very often the output of LaTeX when you do that, it doesn't look great. It just gets the spacing wrong, and so spacing between paragraphs, spacing not necessarily between letters, but just like spacing between words, just like the sizing of things that very often will just look wrong, and it's very difficult to get it to look nice. So when you go along with what LaTeX wants you to do, like using the default font or using one of a very small number of sort of curated fonts, then it can look nice. But try to do anything too different, like use, I mean, it's not even that different. This is one of the stark differences between Microsoft Word and LaTeX. Microsoft Word, you can use any font and it'll look good. With LaTeX, there's maybe like 8 or 9 fonts which have been very curated and which can look nice, and most other things just won't quite look right. It'll, as I said, it'll just get the spacing wrong, and it just won't be able to sort of perfectly craft it and perfectly form it on the page in the way that it can with its default. And then on top of that, the default font, you can see this default font here. This is a Didone font, and it, for its class of font, it looks pretty good. But it's a class of font that I think is not particularly nice to look at. It's based on the kind of font that you would see, the kind of typeface that you would see in books from like a century ago. And when you look in old books, particularly old academic books, old scientific books, this sort of thing would look very familiar. You would see this this kind of these kind of letter forms. So, which is why it's so popular in, it was primarily designed for scientific and academic publishing. So that's why that font was chosen. But I don't think it's a particularly nice looking font. I think if you were to publish a fiction book in this font, it would just look like you hadn't done it properly, like you hadn't formatted the book properly. So I don't think it's a particularly aesthetic font, and it's not a great font to use for books. But the fact that you can see exactly what's going into your book, and that it does have some more advanced typesetting. These are the advantages, some of the advantages of using LaTeX. Now for some of the disadvantages, and there is one one major disadvantage of using LaTeX, which is that it is very hard to use, particularly for beginners. And LaTeX famously has a very steep learning curve. If you wanted to use LaTeX, if you'd never used LaTeX before and you wanted to use it for your book, it is like getting started would be so difficult. And even once you've got your entire book loaded into LaTeX and you've got something appearing on the right, actually then getting it to look how you want you would spend an extraordinary amount of time having to look things up online. How do I do this? How do I do that? It's not like with Word. I was first using Word when I was in primary school, which is like more than 2 decades ago, and no one ever told me how to use Word. It was just obvious. You just figure it out. You want some bold text? Well, that's probably the letter B that's in bold, then, isn't it? You want some italics? Well, it's probably the letter I that's in italics. That number there looks like it changes the font size and so. It's Microsoft Word is very intuitive. The LaTeX absolutely is not. It is an absolute nightmare. And that's just learning the syntax of LaTeX. And later in this video, I'll edit some. I haven't actually done much with what's on screen so far, but later in this video, I'll actually edit some of it and show you a little bit of what goes on. I certainly won't be doing a complete LaTeX course in this video, because a complete LaTeX course would be a video that's about a month long. But I'll show you a bit about what goes on and what sort, very, very simply what sort of things you can do later on. But the learning curve is incredibly steep, and that's just the syntax. Another tremendous difficulty with using LaTeX. And that actually is about to bring me on to what we're looking at here. So LaTeX is something that you can install on your own machine, and you can download various apps or programs to actually interact with it and actually create documents through it. So in a similar way to you download Microsoft Word, then you can use Microsoft Word. You download something like I think it's Text Studio and TechMaker. These are a couple of examples. If you download those, they'll then give you something that looks quite similar to what we're looking at here, where you can edit the LaTeX document on one side and it'll show you a preview of it, show you a preview of the PDF. LaTeX. Well, nowadays the way LaTeX is used is it almost always does a compiled PDF. I think in the past there were some other options. I don't think they're ever used now. Nowadays it's always just straight to PDF. unlike Word, where export as a PDF is a special option. As I say, there are some programs you can download to run LaTeX. They are an absolute nightmare. Because with LaTeX, well, a bit of a tangent. With LaTeX, you have these things called packages. You can see one of them, which is an extremely common one that you basically have to use all the time, up here. These packages are, I suppose, sort of like apps on their own. If you're on your phone, you want to download a new app, you have to download it and install it, and it's all done for you, but you have to do that. It's a similar sort of thing with LaTeX. The basic LaTeX system, you download LaTeX, you've got that basic LaTeX system. If you want to extend it, which you always have to do, there's just always extra packages you need and extra things that you need to do. So you always have to download extra packages. You then have to install them, and that's mostly done for you, but it's kind of just a weird thing. It's a weird thing that you have to do with LaTeX that you don't have to do with Microsoft Word, because Microsoft Word can just do it. I can't believe I'm defending Microsoft Word here. All of that, it is, I'd say it is like being a programmer. You are being a programmer if you're using it, because you have to install these different packages. There is code running behind the scenes, and it's not all that behind the scenes. The scene is just a very thin piece of paper, so what you're doing here is it's not just light programming; it is programming really. When you're actually editing the document, and then all of the actual maintenance of the LaTeX system on your computer is also basically like being a programmer. If you are not a technically minded person, that would be an absolute nightmare. You'd hate it, and that reason alone, the fact that LaTeX is pretty much exclusively designed for technical people, that alone is, I think, a reason why if you are not a technical person, which most authors aren't, then just avoid it. It's a nightmare. I have done plenty of programming in my life, and even I find it extremely annoying to deal with LaTeX. So those two things, the steep learning curve and the difficulty of actually getting the thing to work, are two of the biggest downsides of using LaTeX. And that brings me on to what we're looking at here. So this here is actually a website called overleaf.com. And on overleaf.com, you can edit and export LaTeX documents. And Overleaf, it's interesting. About a decade ago, I forget when Overleaf started. I think originally they went by a different name, I think. Because I remember, long time ago now, when I was at university, I say long time ago, I don't want to think of it as a long time ago, but it unfortunately is. But all that time ago when I was at university, there was a system like this, which was very new. And I used it a bit, and it compared to the other options for using LaTeX, it was great. And I think it has over the years developed into this sort of modern overleaf.com, and it's brilliant. If you're doing anything with LaTeX, just use overleaf.com. Don't bother. If you are an author who's curious about LaTeX and you want to try it, which if you've gotten to this point of the video, I assume that is who you are. If you're curious about LaTeX and you just want to try it, you just want to see for yourself what you get. Don't try downloading LaTeX onto your machine. That's a nightmare. Just use overleaf.com. It is so much better than what came before it. So much better. Because it's just, it's so simple. It's just an online editor. You just type stuff here, you get stuff here, you can download it. Brilliant. There's no faffing about with it. Like, all the packages are already installed on their system, so there's no faffing about with trying to install it on your system. It's so much better. So if you are curious about LaTeX, just use overleaf.com. Don't even bother trying to do the rest of it, because it's not worth it. So this is the overleaf.com editor. Now I've already created a document here, and I've gone into it. If you were to create an Overleaf account, which I believe they're still free, certainly I'm not paying for it. If you were to create one, you get given a dashboard. It's very, very simple, and you just click like new project, and that'll take you to here, where you can just edit away on your LaTeX document. And there's lots of other things around here. I mean, Overleaf, again, because LaTeX is designed for academic publishing, a lot of the features of Overleaf are also designed for this. So there's lots of things at the top here about like sharing and submitting things and chatting. So if you're just a regular author, you won't need that at all. You won't need any, most of the features you can see around here, you just won't need, which is very convenient. Most of what you need is just what's going on here, and then you get your output. And I believe you can download it. Like there's somewhere, is that the button? There we go. That's the button to actually download the PDF. So at any point, after you compile something, you can just hit download, and there you go. You've got your PDF. So as I say, if you want to just have a go with LaTeX, which why not? You try it on overleaf.com. This video isn't sponsored by overleaf.com. I'm just a big fan. So those are some of the. So we've gone through some of the advantages and the disadvantages. We'll have a mess around with what's going on here in a moment. But hopefully that's given you a sense of whether or not you should even bother considering LaTeX. As I say, my advice to 99% of authors is just don't even bother thinking about it, because it's just not what you want. It's going to be a pain. It's going to be inconvenient. It's going to be hard to use. It won't give you what you want, and so on. The small number of authors who I wouldn't recommend it to them, but I would say maybe it's what you want, are the ones who are, if you're technically minded, if you're someone who you really, really care about the exact output that you get, and Microsoft Word just isn't going to give it to you, then maybe LaTeX will do it. And also, if you're like me, and you're someone who really doesn't like Word, like just messing about with things behind the scenes, then LaTeX may be good for you, because LaTeX has many, many problems, but messing around with things isn't one of them. All of that very, very long spiel being said, let's actually have a mess around with LaTeX. We're not going to do very much at all, because LaTeX is fantastically complex and there's so much to do and to learn. So I just created here essentially a blank document. This is just what you get if you just select this is pretty much the minimum that you need to actually get something to display. It's not quite the minimum, but this is sort of a very, very basic outline of the document. So let me just describe what's here. The first thing that you have to do in a LaTeX document is describe your document class. Now this is set up to article by default. I forget what the full list is. I think one of them is book. I don't know. I wonder what I'm pretty sure one of them is book. There we go. It's even suggesting it to me. And actually, if you just click Control S in Overleaf, it will recompile it, which is quite nice. So there we go. It's done something different there. This is another one of the problems with LaTeX. So you have to select the document class, and the document class is like, here are all of the assumptions to put into whatever document I'm making. But sometimes those aren't the assumptions you want to make, and then it's a complete nightmare to try to wrangle LaTeX and not do those things. Just one of the many, many annoying things about LaTeX. But I've changed it to book. It's changed some things. It's given me a full title page. I'm just going to change it back to article, just so that everything's on one page, not because that's what we would actually need. There we go. So the first thing you have to do is specify a document class. You would probably use book if you are doing a book, but to be honest, so much of the layout of LaTeX needs to be changed for a book, for a proper sort of fiction book. So it doesn't really matter what document class you use, because you get to change everything anyway. This use package thing here, it's put that in there automatically. To do a full book, there are so many different packages you need. You would have to look around online for specific packages that do specific things. That's so much of using LaTeX is just Googling how to do things with LaTeX. So you would end up needing loads of these things, and they've just put that one in there by default. There's in a LaTeX document, there's this this section here, which I forget exactly what it's called. Maybe it's called like the top matter or something, or the I don't know. It's essentially metadata, comparable to the metadata that you get in the head section of a HTML page, if you're familiar with that sort of thing. So here we have specified the title, the author, and also this was put in by default. This date thing that doesn't matter for a novel. So we'll just get rid of that, and it's probably going to now remove it from. No, it's put that in automatically. We'll get to that in a moment. So you would need to specify the title and the author here, which you do with this command where it's a backslash title, and then you do recurve brackets, and you put the title in there. You need to do that because if you do have a full book and you have some headers and footers, it's going to get the title and the author for those headers and footers from here. So that's an example actually of where LaTeX is better than Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word, when you do headers and footers, you have to type this stuff in. If you join together, if you connect together the headers and footers, then you won't have to type it in multiple times, possibly, or you might, depending on how annoying Word is being. So it becomes another thing to check, which is very annoying. With LaTeX, you just define it up here, and then it's just whenever it needs that information, it's just going to pull it from there. So you define it once, and it's used everywhere, which is brilliant. It means if you do a slight change, if you want to slightly adjust the style of your author name, if you decide to go for initials instead of full names in parts of it, then you just have to change it in one place. Brilliant. So that's the top matter of a LaTeX document, and then you can see here there's two commands: a \begin document and \end document, and this essentially just defines the region in which you're going to actually put the stuff in your document. So everything inside here is the actual text of your document, of your book, and then everything before that isn't. It's all the informational stuff. It's all the data that gets fed into things. So then within here we have this command here, and anything of this form, by the way, is goes by. It's referred to as different things. I call them commands. That's quite a common phrase for them, but not everyone uses it. \make title is a command, and this command it's just doing that. It's just saying put that on the page. Now you can already see the problem with this if you're a fiction author, and that's that which fiction author wants to put the date in their title? No one wants to. You might put the date of publication somewhere else, but you're not going to put it in the title. So this command is already useless to you as an author. If we're a fiction author, we'd probably just don't bother using that. We'd probably put our own ones in. And here now we are going against what I was saying before. You define something in one place. Oh, not that. You'd probably do it yourself. And there are ways to, that looks worse now, and the reason why is because LaTeX thinks these are paragraphs. We would have to do some wrangling in order to get these to actually look like, if we were having like a title page, to actually look like that. You can already start to see how much wrangling has to be done with LaTeX. You might think, is there an easy way that I can change the font size? Well, let's actually go down this path. We can start to see how complex it is. So, as I say, no, you know what? We'll return to that in a moment. We'll just put those there for now, and we'll return to that in a moment. The next thing down here, you can see that's bugging me now. I can't wait to return to that. The next thing you can see here, you can see this \section command. Again, this is all geared towards academic publishing. In academic publishing, you might have an article that has various sections. You don't really have that in novel publishing. So if you're doing a novel, you'd almost certainly never use this command here. There's a variety of section commands. So there's like a subsection, command. There's subsection, which is very silly name. Those ones are many, and I think even now this is confusing. There's a command called paragraph. This command does not put a paragraph on the page. Instead, it puts a paragraph heading, which is like I think the lowest kind of heading that you can have, the smallest kind of heading. How stupid's that? So inconvenient. Yeah, so the / paragraph command is not in fact a paragraph; it is a heading. Very, very silly. It's one of the many things I hate about LaTeX. But you have some bigger level commands as well, and one of them is chapter. So obviously this is something you would actually use in a novel. So if we put a chapter command like this is going to say this command essentially says start a new chapter here. And if we make up a chapter title, a very interesting chapter. And I'm going to get rid of these other sectioning commands. When you have a command like this, so this chapter command, and the same with the section and subsection and so on, with all those commands. What this command does, it doesn't just say put the chapter heading here or put the chapter title here. It also means start a new chapter. So LaTeX will do a lot of the chapter counting for us and so on. And when you say start a new chapter like this, it's going to increase the counter in the relevant way. If we compile this now, have I done that wrong? I don't know what I've done wrong there. Nope, I have no idea what I've done wrong. I was pretty sure that worked. Well, at the very least, this shows another problem with using LaTeX. You do things that you think work, and they don't work. And what I would now do is normally is go and look online and say, what the hell's going on here? I'm pretty sure this normally works. Okay. Let's abandon that. Is this going to work then? Okay, it's fine with that. What about no, I'm just diverting for my own interest. I'm pretty sure part is an also sectioning command. Oh, it's fine with that then. So I don't know why chapter's not working. I was pretty sure that would work. Anyway, there's different sectioning commands, one of which is chapter. That's the one. Oh, I know why it's not doing it. I know. Let's see if this does it. Okay, so that's why it wasn't working. Different document classes make different sectioning commands available, and the article, is not usual to have chapters of an article, so it doesn't allow it. So you have to change document class to book. This is the kind of madness that you would subject yourself to if using LaTeX. Silly things like that just get in the way of everything. We've just seen like one or two there. You will encounter these constantly as you use LaTeX. Anyway, so there we go. The chapter command is now working. And you can see what it's done here. So we had some stuff on that first page. And it's started a new page for the new chapter. And I believe it by default always does it on an odd number page. So it always appears on the right-hand page, which is nice. And it's already put in there, it's put in chapter 1 for us, which it will do throughout the book. So, it'll keep numbering them, which is great. You don't have to do that yourself. And it's put in a chapter heading, chapter title for us as well, which is what we typed there. So it has started a new chapter, and it's also put in the chapter heading, and it's also put in chapter 1 for us. You can also, if you put a star there, that'll mean don't number the chapter essentially, and it won't put it in. For the sake of clarity, we'll leave it in. So you have these different sectioning commands. They tell LaTeX to start a new section and to actually put the heading in. Now coming back to this stuff and this stuff. So in LaTeX, if you want a new paragraph, you just start typing on a new line that is separated by at least one line from the previous paragraph, I think that's another annoying thing. So let me give type out some example paragraphs here. Grumpy wizards make toxic brew for the evil queen and Jack. Now here's a nice thing about using LaTeX that Word is very annoying about. If I select all of that, copy, and I paste. How many did I do? I did 4, didn't I? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the perfectionist in me coming forth. If I don't know if you've ever done this. If you try and copy and paste in Microsoft Word, it will do all kinds of weird shit. It will just imagine that you also meant to select the new line character that's invisible to you, but it imagine you selected that. So then you try and paste it. Oh, and it's also put new lines in. Great, Word. I didn't want to do that. I didn't tell you to do that. Why did you do that? One of the many annoying things about Word, at least in LaTeX, it won't do that. What you copy, and that, like it won't try to interpret anything for you. It won't try to grab extra stuff. It will just copy that. Brilliant. Anyway, there we go. If we save that, if we compile that, it'll show us paragraph. There we go. So that's all we had to do to get that paragraph in there. We just had to put the text in. It is technically all on one line, and the line's just been wrapped, which is why you can see there's no extra line numbers here. And if we want to put in more paragraphs, we just make sure there always needs to be a space, I believe, separating the paragraphs. Otherwise, it will think that they're not separate paragraphs. Let's just put those in. And there we go. We've got our 5 paragraphs, and that's why these two up here, where we try to put in something that looks a bit nicer, a bit better for the quote title page. That's why it came out like that, because when you just have text like this, LaTeX is going to interpret it as just a paragraph. The fact that it does that, quite convenient if you're doing simple documents, and utter nightmare if you're doing more complex documents. Anyway, we'll come back and deal with those a bit more in a moment. But you can see, so here we go. It's put those 5 paragraphs in. Now you can start to see some of the advantages of LaTeX. I mean, we haven't done very much, but so you can see already this is using justified text. Great. That's what we should be using for a book, because it's, once you're used to it, it does look nicer. That's something that obviously by default isn't set in Microsoft Word. It's done it for us. It's also indented all of the paragraphs for us. Great. And it's, you can change the amount by which it indents. But we didn't have to set it. We didn't have to tell it to do it. It just did it. And it did it by, it's quite a nice amount by which to indent a paragraph, and nicely it hasn't done it with the first paragraph. It just kept it there, which is also quite nice. So you can see, all we did, this is just text, like you were put in Notepad, just text. And because a lot of the default setup of LaTeX is so convenient, I want to stop short of saying it's good. It has just given us something that looks pretty nice by default. So that's one of the huge advantages of using LaTeX. And also, when it comes to novels actually have very, very simple formatting, really, when you compare it to other books. I mean, if you think about a coffee table book, coffee table books are spectacularly complex in their layout. There's a huge amount that has to go into the layout. With a novel, and this channel is primarily about novels and things like novels, formatting is actually very, very simple. For the most part, you've just got paragraph text, and you might have some bold and italic, and that is 95-98% of the book is just that. And when all you have to do is put in the text, that's very, very convenient. Speaking of bold and italic, let's just have a look at how we can do that. I should halt the video soon, because there's really not much point going too far into this. But let's say that we wanted to make something bold. So let's say we want to make this phrase toxic brew here bold. For this, we just need another command, and that command is \text bf, which stands for text bold font or boldface, and then we just put recurve brackets around the thing that we want to be in bold. If we save that, there we go, it's in bold. And if we want to do italic, let's say we want to make Evil Queen italic, we do text IT. Oh, not text IF, text IT. There we go, \text IT. Actually, let's just make the word evil, emphasize evil. Text IT for italic, and that's just going to make that evil. And this is probably quite small on the screen. Hopefully you can see that. I can zoom in. There we go. You can see it's made that italic. And again, you can see here, one of the advantages of using LaTeX is that, you know, it's really easy to tell that that is the thing you've put in bold, and it's really easy to tell that that is the thing you put in italic. In Word, of course, you can see whether something's bold or italic, but you know, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference in Word between if you'd done something like this, where you'd made the whole thing bold, and if you'd done something like this, where there were actually two bold sections, like that, because Word doesn't, you know, visually there's no difference between the two. But this is, you know, this is less elegant. And again, this is why I say, you know, if you're a perfectionist and if you're a technical person, you know, you've got to care about that sort of stuff. If you're not, you probably don't care. So this, you know, this is an example of where you can see exactly what's being specified, and then you can see the output, as opposed to Word where you can just see the output. You actually, what we've done so far is actually a huge proportion of formatting a book in LaTeX. You know, we have our chapter titles, chapter numbers, and our chapter titles, chapter headings, and we have our paragraph text, and we have bold and italic. That is going to be like 98% of most novels. Now, it doesn't. In many ways, this doesn't look very good. That's probably what you've been thinking the entire time. This looks a bit ugly. And again, it's because, you know, we're using this. Once you get used to this font, it doesn't look so bad. But this Didone font, which I think is called Computer Modern, which you can also download and use in Microsoft Word as CMU serif. This and there's various other variants of it as well. This font doesn't look great. If you're not used to this probably looks really hideous. And this, you know, as a chapter heading, like what's going on here, this is not a very elegant chapter heading at all. You know, you'd want that centered. You probably want the word one there instead of the numeral one. You know, you might want it in small caps and so on. You can change that in LaTeX. Again, it's a complete nightmare. You know, there's just an unreasonable number of steps in doing that sort of thing. But, you know, depending on what you like, we've managed to do quite a bit with very little here. To finish, let's just look at some of the things. You know, what could we do with this? Well, again, this is about looking for commands that you can use. Again, you know, a lot of Googling, looking for commands that you can use. So I believe we can center this. See, when I use LaTeX, I am almost always using it in conjunction with Google and looking up everything, whereas now I'm having to try to remember it all, which I don't typically have it committed to memory. So there we go. Using this begin center and end center pair of commands here, we've centered that. Okay, we're getting a bit closer to what we want. That's what we might look for on a title page. We also want to make it bigger. We want to make the font size bigger. Now, again, we're about to run into, I'm repeating myself here, but we're about to run into another annoying thing about LaTeX. Can you specify a specific font size? By default, no. I think there are packages you can find to get it, but again, what an annoying thing. You can't just specify use 20 point font unless you go and download a specific package that will help you do that. How unbelievably annoying. The way that you change the font by default is using these font size commands, of which there are a few, and you can look them up. Hopefully that'll just affect that. It won't affect that. Good. So there we go. We've increased the font size, and I'd quite like to do that differently for these two, so I won't explain too much about what's going on here because it's not terribly interesting, but I might use a slightly different font size. Huge and large mean different things in LaTeX. Hopefully that'll give us some slightly different font sizes. I might want to add in some space here. I can use the VSpace command to do that. Let's say I want to do 20 points. That should, unless it's being silly, add some vertical space. Oh, let's maybe just fiddle around with that. Did you notice that there? When I didn't have a space there, so a test book for a video book is on that line for some reason. Why? Because I don't have a space here. Add a space there, and now it behaves. How unbelievably stupid is that? This is what you are letting yourself in for with LaTeX. We might want to add some space above that. Up here, let's make it 100 points. It's ignored that. Brilliant. That's probably because we need to add null. No, is that the right thing? Is it really null? It is null. So this is what you're letting yourself. It's like this all the time with LaTeX. Weird things. You know, we say, oh, I want to put in vertical space of 100 points there. Will it put it in? No. Why doesn't it put it in? Because as far as LaTeX is concerned, nothing has been placed on the page yet. It will only add VSpace once something has been placed on the page. It won't just add it to start with. You have, it'll only add it between stuff. So you have to add a null thing at the top of the page so that it will then actually add some space. How stupid is that? This is what you're letting yourself in for. So there we go. And maybe we could do text. What's it called? SC, which I think will give us small caps. There we go. So we have gotten something. I mean, it doesn't look great, but we have gotten something that looks sort of like a title page for our book. It took a lot of, there's a lot of trash here that is just, it's just such a bad way of doing things. It's such an inconvenient way of doing things. But it is a very specific way of doing things. You can see exactly what is there. And it's not going to be interfered with by Microsoft Word. So there we go. We've managed to get something that looks roughly like a title page. We've managed to get something that looks a little bit like chapters. Hopefully that gives you a sense of what it's like to use LaTeX. You can get something nice out of it. So there's a steep learning curve. There's a lot of looking things up. There's a lot of things not working how you expect them to work. In fact, actually, I'm just going to, I believe, this is a package. Maybe this will work. It did. So I mentioned before about using alternative fonts for LaTeX, and it's very difficult to do a lot of the time. If you want to use a custom font, one of the fonts that has been sort of pre-curated or just curated for LaTeX is EB Garamond. Now, I am of course a huge fan of EB Garamond. If you've watched any of my other videos, I go on and on about it. There is a package. You use package EB Garamond. If you just use that, it will make this the default font that it uses everywhere. EB Garamond, wonderful font, really nice looking font. So the fact that you can very easily just change it to that, if you like that font, then this suddenly is going to make LaTeX a lot, not easier, but maybe a lot better. It's going to make the output a lot nicer. We've gotten rid of that horrible default LaTeX font. This still doesn't look good. We'd still want to adjust that. But if we go down to here, this is looking a bit better. Still a few problems, unusually wide margins. This is not a very good way of doing a chapter heading and so on. We could fix those. But just the fact that it's using EB Garamond makes this much nicer looking, because it's just so much nicer than that default font. So if you like EB Garamond, LaTeX may be the option for you. It's not, but it might be. So there we go. That's a big I suppose it's a summary compared to the amount you could spend thinking about LaTeX. There is a big summary of whether or not you should use LaTeX, whether or not you should even consider it. No is the main answer. And if you were to just mess around with it, what you're letting yourself in for. If you really did want to use LaTeX for your book, I'd suggest there are plenty. I say plenty. I think there are. I think there are a number of courses, or any of the sites where you can find courses. Like the Skillshares and the Udemys of the world. Any of those sites, I'm fairly sure, have courses, and I think there's free ones as well, just on YouTube probably. Courses in getting started with LaTeX. I would recommend watching one of those because as I say, it's such a steep learning curve. It's such a pain to begin with. That would just help you get going, and they probably would teach you enough actually to get something pretty nice looking out at the end of it. So if you did want to do it, if you do want to use LaTeX, use Overleaf, do a course, and that would get you going, and you'd probably end up with something quite nice. But again, only if you're really technically minded. Otherwise, you will hate it. You'll hate every second of it. So there we go. That's a big summary of whether or not to use LaTeX. If you're still listening, I assume you are someone who maybe is interested. I assume all of the people who are not the people predisposed to using LaTeX stopped listening an hour ago, however long this has been going on. But anyway, that is a big summary of whether or not you should use LaTeX for your book.